you can just poo-poo on the iPhone LiDAR, or you can see like, okay, what is this? Where could I actually use this thing? And there are definitely real-world applications for it.
We did a job last year where we went up to a military base, and while we were there, I was like, hey, you know what? Let me go. And I ended up scanning a tank with my phone, and I just walked around it.
Yeah.
And now I have all these tanks on my phone that I went and scanned.
Welcome to the Reality Capture Network, where we focus on technology-driven innovation, education, and community. The Reality Capture Network, bringing the future to you. On this episode of the RCN Podcast, the operations manager and the director of advanced technology at Allen & Company, Daniel Brice and Shawn Asher.
Over 200 and something scenes in the Trimble X7, and I scanned for 5 days.
If we weren't making new tech all the time and there weren't so many options, this industry would be pretty stale.
9 weeks of basic training. I got to throw a hand grenade. I got to shoot the AT-4. I got to set up a claymore. Like all this new experience, teamwork, and building was just so cool for me.
Graduating basic training and the schooling, this is part of the test as well. Like you have to complete a 13-mile ruck march with 35 or 50 pound, whatever it is, on your back. And I'm like, great.
I called him and he was like, we're not really hiring right now, but what's your background? I was like, well, I was Army. Let me talk to you. When he heard I was a veteran and I have geospatial background, he was like, come on in. Became a Part 107 pilot, started flying that, creating photogrammetry with those, doing planimetric.
It'd be awesome to do something like that in different settings.
Be able to have some sort of open source communication, be able to start working on your own inside of their technology.
You guys could actually be training people on your actual facility and where the areas they're going to be working in, instead of kind of the generic material.
The equipment itself is going to be expensive no matter what. The better it is, the more expensive it's going to be.
How do these things work? How good can they actually be? What are the limitations? Don't tell me it just solves all my problems.
Warning. This podcast episode contains discussion and reflections on difficult topics around mental health, trauma, and suicide. While we intend to create a safe and empathetic space for dialogue, we acknowledge that this episode might not be suitable for everyone. This episode is intended for informational and awareness purposes only and should not substitute professional medical advice or therapy. The hosts and guests are not mental health professionals, but individuals sharing their personal experiences.
All right, welcome to the Reality Capture Network podcast. Today, we're excited to have two guests with us. We got Mr. Daniel and Shawn. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us, man.
Thanks for inviting us.
All right, and let's tell people where you guys are joining us from today.
I am in Winter Haven, Florida, my home office, and Daniel, you're in
Winter Garden. Like 10 minutes from our actual office.
Beautiful Florida. And you both work for?
Allen & Company, headquartered in Winter Garden, Florida, just right outside of Orlando.
That's awesome. Well, it's not been very often that we've had two people on the podcast at the same time, but I think it always makes for some fun conversation, and excited to have both of you hear your stories a little bit. I think you have some crossover maybe in your stories, which is part of why we're doing this together. So I'm excited about that. But why don't we go ahead and start with Shawn? I'd love to talk a little bit about your guys' background and your journey into your kind of career path. And I think we're also going to talk a little bit about the fact that you are both veterans as well.
Yes, sir.
So excited to hear those stories and dig in there.
Yeah, a big reason of why we wanted to talk to you is, the veteran community and helping other veterans find, this career path that we found. For me, I barely passed high school, barely, and there was no option to go anywhere but community college. So I enrolled in community college. I spent 3 weeks in an English class, and it was barely for credit English class, remedial English class, because, just not a very well written or not great at reading either, we'll be honest. So I spent 3 weeks. It was a 2-hour class that was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And the first 3 weeks were how to use a comma. And I was like, I am done with this. This is not for me whatsoever. So my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she told me that I had to do something, otherwise we were not going to continue. So I joined the Army as a geospatial intel analyst. Got out, worked in counterterrorism for a little while, and realized that this is great, but it's not a long-term career path with growth and potential. You could be a great analyst with virtually no experience, or you can spend 20 years and not work your way up past analyst. So decided to make a change. Latched on with an Army Corps of Engineers contract that was doing LiDAR and imagery capture all over the world for military U.S. personnel or U.S. military personnel and bases all over the world for whatever their missions were. So traveled a ton, got my intro to LiDAR and learned, from the ground up, everything LiDAR, classification of points, what is an LAS file, what is an IMU, what is a, range file, all of these things. So got really hands-on and a deep knowledge base to start through that, and then went into private sector, did a ton of, had lost track after 1,000 miles of mapping utility lines, electric lines. After 1,000 miles, I just stopped counting. I've done a ton of statewide projects, federal contracts, USGS work, 3-DEP program, a ton of DOT. I think I'm up to 7 DOTs that I've mapped LiDAR for, different state DOTs. And then, kind of got really tired of making paper maps that would just sit on a shelf. And I was done. I was just done. All of the problems are the same. It just manifests in a different way depending on the tech and the client. So it's like you're solving the same thing. It's just a little bit different every time. And I was I had applied to be a high school history teacher because I was just done. I was done making paper maps that just
all
sat
the
on
way
the shelf.
changed.
Yeah, dude, I just didn't
off.
care anymore. I was out. I was like, yeah, this is miserable. And then after I had applied and got accepted, I found Allen and Company, and they were showing me, how this LiDAR and reality capture stuff applies into simulations, mod sim industry, Department of Defense opportunities, reality capture in a digital twin. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's not a paper map. That sounds cool. So kind of latched on with Allen and Company, and definitely not moving to be a high school history teacher anymore.
That's awesome. I think the technology has a way of pulling people's interest in. I know that was kind of one of the things that sparked my interest kind of in the survey industry. Originally, it wasn't a super exciting role to be in. But when you start looking at mapping environments and creating models, and now the vision of creating immersive environments and training and simulation, and there's so many directions that this technology can take you. It's definitely an exciting time. Thanks for the background a bit there, Shawn. Let's jump over and do similar, Daniel, with you.
So, actually, before I start, what's funny is he applied to be a history teacher, but I want to say about 2 weeks ago, we had the opportunity to go to UCF with our VLX and teach. Well, actually, not even teach. It was to show a couple of people, what the VLX is capable of. And at UCF, they have a place called, I think it's Starbase, where they have a summer program for kids, STEM kids. And Asher got to go up front and say, hey, look, this is the Navis and stuff. And the amount, I think there was 20 kids around teenage years, and every one of them were raising their hands, and just the smile on Asher's face, you could tell he wants to be a teacher. And it's funny. It's really funny that just seeing the happiness and the glow that, all these kids were learning about. It was crazy because one of the questions that he asked was, can you scan in the dark? And one of the girls was like, oh yeah, but too much light will also hurt your lasers. And he's like, we need to hire her. How does she know that? How does this 13-year-old know this?
Some smart kids out there.
Not even some employees know this. Yeah. Some adults don't know this stuff. So.
Yeah.
I told her I was getting paid to do LiDAR and understand LiDAR before I realized that LiDAR could work in the dark, and that too much light would hurt your LiDAR. And I was like, this 12-year-old girl is already understands that. Wow.
Yeah.
Need an internship?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, I was born in Orlando, Florida, lived here my whole life. When I was getting out of high school, I was 17, and my mom actually had to sign her name for me to be able to join the Army. So I joined the Army when I was 17 in the summer. I think it was like 2003. I went to basic training. And then when I got out of basic training, I was still 17 years old. And then when I turned 18 in November, I got deployed to Iraq in December. So like you can't deploy unless you're 18. So they waited like right when I turned 18.
Happy birthday.
3 days later, I was in Iraq. Yeah. So I was there for probably about 15, 16 months. And, you know, when I joined the military, I joined as a laundry, bath, and textile specialist, which is I just set up shower units and laundry units. And the only reason why I picked that is because they were like, hey, do you want $5,000 and do you want to ship out next week? And I was like, yes, give me that money. Because I was 17. I had nothing for me. I had no I wasn't planning on going to college. I think at the time I worked at like Popeyes as a drive-through cashier. I had nothing going for me. So I joined the military. They gave me $5,000. I left. You know, and then when I went to Iraq, I was convoy security. I basically just sat on the back of a Stryker with my rifle, and I was just security. And we set up forward operating bases all over Iraq just for other infantry units to be able to go out and set up. So I did that for, like I said, 16 months, came back, and I decided to change my job to geospatial analyst, where I learned that I was going to be making maps, aeronautical maps, artillery maps with satellite imagery. So I did that for the next, I want to say like 10 years. I did that, became a geospatial sergeant. I was part of 2nd Brigade, 1st Cav out of Fort Hood. I was there for a couple of years, and then I was in Hawaii underneath the 5th Engineer Detachment, which is underneath the 130th Engineer Brigade. And I did that for about 6 years when I was there. And then I got hurt while I was in Hawaii in a Humvee rollover accident. There's like a training where you're in a Humvee and they roll it a bunch of times, and then when you're upside down, you're supposed to get out. Well, I put my hand up, unbuckled my seatbelt, fell on my neck, and then I blew out my bottom 2 vertebrae. So they had to fuse my lumbar, and then unfortunately I had to get out. I couldn't be a soldier anymore. So got out, was hired by Leidos, went to it was St. Louis, where I was just a database manager for FMV drones. Did that for about 8 months, and then transferred to Leidos in Orlando. So came back with my wife now. I met her when I was in St. Louis. And I just was a cartographer for about 5 years.
Nice.
And as I'm leaving for work one day, I'm driving, I happen to see this truck on the side of the road that's wrapped, and it says Allen and Company, Geospatial Mapping Services. And I'm like, you know, let me give him a call. Let me see. So, Mark Marion, he's still there at the company. I called him, and he was like, well, he's like, we're not really hiring right now. And I was like, he's like, but what's your background? I was like, well, I was Army. And he's like, all right, come on in. Let me talk to you. Immediately when he heard I was a veteran and I have geospatial background, he was like, come on in. So I came in, and he gave me a 3-month like internship kind of subcontractor. And then at the time it was COVID, so I got laid off from Leidos. Called Mark and I said, hey, you know, I just got laid off today. It was a Friday. He's like, all right, well, you start Monday full time. And ever since then, it's been 3 years now.
That's awesome.
Full time Allen and Company. And I have no LiDAR background, no laser scanning background, no drone background, no survey background at all. And I've been here 3 years now, and I'm the operations manager of the AT department. Yeah. So I now have a Part 107 drone license. I scan with the RTC 360, X7, VLX, like everything. It's
That's
just
awesome.
It blows my mind.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind.
Yeah. That shows how quick somebody could get in this industry if applying themselves and diving in, how quick you can get up to speed. Now, you know, can you be an expert in 2 years? No, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to figure out. But there are so many needs around these technologies and in this industry that, you know, you can't go find someone who already has 8 years experience. Like you could, right, but there's only 12 of them and they're already at a company, you know, it's very, very, very seldom that you're going to find someone to hire that has a lot of experience. Whereas you can find somebody that's hardworking, that's interested in the technology, doesn't even have to know what they're doing yet. And in 2-3 years can now be helping run your division. That's incredible. Appreciate you sharing it.
And not only that, it's like I don't have to be the expert in drone flying. I don't have to be the expert in laser scanning or LiDAR or processing, but we can find someone
Yeah.
that is the subject matter expert in that. And, I tell Asher all the time, like, I'm not the expert in all of these things. He's like, but what you are an expert in is like people skills. You care, you learn, and you understand people, and you're like the glue that keeps this department together. So
That's great.
we find the people that know how to do it, and then that's, we grow from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want, before we dig more into technology, I want to rewind just because you both have similar background. I want to go back real quick. I need a story. I want to hear from each of you a little bit about basic training.
Basic training for me was probably the best time of my life in the military. And the only reason being, because like I said, I went to Iraq for, a year and a half, and then I learned all of this process of other jobs. But basic training is so cool because it's new. You're going there and you don't know what to expect. Like you're on a bus, and then this drill sergeant comes on and he's like, get the F off my bus, get your bags, get in line, and they dump these bags in a big mound, a pile of, bags, and they have you form up. And then they're like, you got 1 minute to find your bag. And you're like, this ain't going to happen. So you run over there, and he's like, you have to be back here in 1 minute. And you come back, you don't have your bag. You can't find it. You don't know where it is. So then you do push-ups. All right, you got 45 seconds to go find your bag. All right, so you run over there, and you got to be back in 45 seconds. You come back, you don't have your bag. And eventually, after 300 push-ups later, they let you go get your bag. And, I get to shoot the AT-4, which is an anti-tank rocket. I got to set up an actual claymore and set it off. Like, I never did that throughout my entire military career, but that 9 weeks of basic training, I got to throw a hand grenade. I got to shoot the AT-4. I got to set up a claymore. Like, all this new experience, teamwork, and building was just so cool for me. And I did it at a Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and it was horrible. It was during the summer.
Oh, yeah.
It was sweaty. It was bad.
So would you say it was as expected, or was it harder than you would have thought?
I guess it's a little bit of both. Like, I expected to get there and get yelled at. And, but it was hard because I'm not used to climbing up. They had this, I think it was called a victory tower, and it's 4 levels of a tower, and it's a team of 4, and you have to get to one level, but to get to the next level, your whole team has to get up there. So 2 people are getting up, and you have to pull your team up to level 2, and then you get on 3 and pull your team to level 3, and then 4. So like all that's like, I've never done that in my entire life before that. So it's all brand new. And it, like I always tell people, it's like the best time of my life in the military. Yeah, it really is.
I learned perseverance at basic training. It was like 2 or 3 days before the weapons range. And like, there are certain milestones in basic training, like tests that you have to pass, or else you don't pass basic training, you don't go into your school. My wife and I had planned our time frame for actually getting married to be in accordance with graduating basic training and the schooling. So like, anyway, you have to run everywhere. You have to run absolutely everywhere, full sprint everywhere.
And stay off the grass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm sprinting to the DFAC to have lunch, and I just step on the side of the sidewalk and half on the grass, and I just completely roll my ankle, and it's swollen, it's orange, it blue, purple, and it's like the size of an orange in there. And I'm like, shoot. If I go to sick call, they call it, to go see a doctor, like I'm gonna get crutches, and you can't take crutches onto a range. It's not a thing. So if I say anything to anybody about this ankle or show that this ankle is screwed, like my wedding date is gonna change, and I'm not doing that to my wife. So for 3 days, like, I am crying my eyes out in pain of like everything, and I'm just trying to hide behind everybody so nobody can see this, so that I don't have to go get crutches and I can't go to the range, and my wedding date gets pushed. And it was like one of the top 5 most painful experiences of my life for 3 straight days. And then, like the day of the range, like I'm like, I can get through this. Well, the day of the range, we wake up and they're like, okay, we're going to the range, meet outside, PT formation, whatever. We're all lined up, ready to go. He's like, all right, we're marching there. And I'm like, what? It's 13 miles. We're ruck marching 13 miles on this ankle. And I'm like, little did I know that this is part of the test as well. Like, you have to complete a 13-mile ruck march with 35 or 50 pound, whatever it is, on your back. And I'm like, great.
Oh, yeah.
So you ruck march to the range 4:00 in the morning. I'm like, again, in excruciating pain. And I go to the range and, shoot and qualify. And it's like, finish all that. And then immediately afterwards, I like open up my boot and show the drill sergeant. I'm like, I need to get this looked at. They're like, how long have you had that? It was like 2 days now. They're like, what? And like, I was not getting recycled. I was not going to be here longer than I had to be. There's no chance in hell. So yeah,
Oh, man.
definitely taught me like limitations and perseverance, and like you can get through some stuff.
Yeah. A lot of people I think would have quit at that point. In fact, that makes me ask, how many people started and how many people graduated? What's your rough thought there?
I think we probably lost 10, 15%, something like that. Yeah. But I mean, most of it's the psychological aspect. Like, I think we lost a few people to the physicality of it, but a lot of people got lost to like, yeah. And it's like, as soon as you recognize there's no winning in this scenario, like, you can't do anything right. Whatever you do, it's wrong. You're going to have to do push-ups. You're going to have to you're going to have to get yelled at. And like, as soon as you accept that that's just part of this process, it's like the rest, you can start having fun once you realize that's part of the process,
It's all in your head.
Yeah. Gonna find. Yeah.
I mean, I when I got there, I learned quickly that if I stand in the front and I hold the flag, the guide on, because you stand up front, everybody else behind me is getting yelled at and doing push-ups, and I'm standing there like, it's not me, because I'm not getting in trouble. It's not me. Like, so you learn, like, okay, well, if I don't go do that, I'm not going to have to do push-ups. It's all in your head. Like, the drill sergeants aren't there to make you quit. They're there to make you stronger. And if you just aren't mentally like capable of becoming stronger, then you're just not going to make it. You're really not. Yep. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, I've never been to a Navy SEAL training and all that stuff, but I've seen and I've known people that's done stuff, and they have that bell. Like, if you don't make it, you ring it and you're out. It's all mental. They always say it's teamwork and mental stability. It's not, they're not there to make you quit. So
yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about, so you guys are through that process. You're out now the last couple years. You've been digging into the geospatial world, and you guys are kind of building this department, and you're interested in hiring other veterans.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot in an awareness of like telling veterans like, hey, this is an industry that's growing, and your soft skills and hard skills that you learn in the military apply here. We're talking about the mental resiliency, and there's a lot that holds in this industry. Like, being able to go out into the field and like, it's a swamp, or it's a, chemical plant, or it's a hot sunny day with no air conditioning, and like embracing the fact that it's going to be a long day and I still have a mission to do, and I can't get bogged down in the complaining about how tough this job is, or, whatever that is. Like, when we hire veterans or we work with other veterans, like they get it. This is the mission, and there are layers to this mission that are going to suck, but it's okay. And I'm going to go execute the mission at a high level. And like, that translates into this industry so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was actually, I was at a birthday party about 4 months ago, and I overheard some guy talking, and he was like, yeah, I'm a Marine veteran. I'm a construction project manager. And so I came to work on that following Monday, and I said, Asher, we need to go and interview this guy. He's a veteran. He's from the Marines, and he's also a project manager. And at the time we needed a project manager. And so we interviewed him, hired him. He's been with us now for 90 days and like the best like hire that we've done, because it just took so much off my plate. He takes it and he goes, and I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to follow up with him, because, he has a task, he gets it done. Yeah. And that's one thing I love about veterans, is because, they don't quit. And I'm not saying that about
No.
civilians don't do that either, but it's just easier, I think, for veterans
Yeah.
that have been in the service long enough to know, that they don't want to get yelled at.
Yeah.
With him in particular, like no GIS, no survey, no mapping experience whatsoever. But like, he is a Marine and he's very structured and organized, and he sees the targets, lines them up, and hits them. So like, how that translates into our workflow and getting the deadlines and the dates and all of those things documented and actionable, it's like, it doesn't even matter that he doesn't know survey or GIS. What we needed was somebody to come in and say like, okay, we need to structure this way so that everybody can fall in line with that system and be a part of that structure and make it repeatable. And it's like, again, just the attention to detail that the military taught him translates so incredibly into our operation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like you said, not to say normal civilians can't be structured or disciplined, but I've gone through it too as a business owner. I've definitely had employees that lack structure, that lack attention to detail, that lack motivation, and you do see it from those that come out of the military that is something they've been trained in the last several years, is discipline, is timeliness, and I'd love for you guys to share a little bit of your thoughts, both being veterans. What is some of the reason you think that veterans coming out of the military sometimes have a hard time transitioning into a workplace, or picking or finding a career after coming out? What's some of your thought around that?
You want me to go first, Daniel?
Yeah, that works.
I think the biggest thing in what I've seen is like purposeful work, and what you do in the military, you're either training to do something purposeful, or you're deployed and you're doing something that feels very, very purposeful. And like the connectedness to what you're doing is important for veterans. It's very important. So, putting us in a cube and like filling out TPS reports, it's like pain. It's just pain, because we're like, what's the point of this? Why? But like when it's in this reality capture laser scanning industry, like customers are just bringing you a problem, really. Like, yeah, they need a survey or they need a laser scan or whatever, but like it's not just they need this to solve a problem, and they bring you their problems. So it's like it's very easy to get connected to the work when you realize like, oh, I'm helping this person solve this problem. So in my eyes, it's like purpose,
Yeah, and I think for me, like when I got out, like I did 12 years, and I would have done 20, I would have done 30, but unfortunately I couldn't. When I was getting out of the Army, they had something called the ACAP program, which is like Army Career Program, and they help you write a resume, they help you transition from military to civilian world. But for me, it's just like leaving that brotherhood, that sisterhood of like of just your core group, and then being put into a cube. Like I went from army of squads and friends and stuff, and then I went to Leidos, where I was in a cube for 8 months, and then I was in another cube for 5 years. And now, with an Allen and Company, we don't have cubes in our office. It's just one open bay of 12 people. And, the people we brought in, they're like, we're used to cubes, we're used to offices, but this is straight open. It's like, I could sit there and be working on some and then yell over to the desk next to me like, hey, where's this project? I need this now. And but yeah, I think it's really hard just coming out of the military, always having something to do, always being told where to go, what to do. And then now you're taking it upon yourself in the civilian world. I'm like, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
Because luckily they had that program to get my resume built up, because I would have been in the same shoes as I was when I was 17. I had nothing going for me. And most of the people that come in the military, even if they're like infantry, they'll come out and they'll be police officers or correctional officers. So really, when you leave the military, what your job in the military and your experiences in the military really carry over to the civilian side. It's hard. unless you know somebody that's willing to hire veterans, which is what Allen and Company has been trying to do. I think we're like 120 strong now in Allen and Company, and out of that 120, we're over 10 veterans into the company.
That's awesome.
And within the advanced technology department, we have 3.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's great.
It's
yeah,
great.
we have several in our company as well, and there's some of our hardest working field crews and leaders. So we appreciate seeing other companies that are hiring down that route as well.
I think to piggyback off of what Daniel was saying, like Matt, you see it, like the teamwork involved in every project and every customer, every opportunity, and like you just don't find that in a lot of industries and a lot of fields where it's that collaborative and you have that many people needing to be on the same page about exactly what's happening, how it needs to happen, and when. And it's like, that carries over from the military, and like your squad mates are your friends. They are the people you spend the most amount of time with. You go and play Call of Duty with them after work. Like, that level of working together translates from the military into this industry at a high level.
I bet that's and like you were saying, Daniel, I think that's probably one of the things that veterans realize too when they come out and get into another job is you'll quickly identify whether the company has good team culture or not, because you are so plugged into working with people and having that group and close relationships that there are so many companies that really need to work on that. You do, like you said, you get plugged into a cubicle and it's like, no, you just show up and do your own thing and you talk to a few people, but it's not, what you're used to, then coming out of.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I'd love to hear, maybe we dig in a little bit on the technology side. So, you guys are a few years into kind of building your department as far as the advanced technologies go. Would love to hear kind of what that journey has looked like for you the last couple years, getting into it and building. Where'd you start? What technologies have you been using the last couple years?
So I joined Allen and Company in 2020, and at the time we had a DJI RTK drone and a Trimble X7 laser scanner. That's all we had. And I became a Part 107 pilot, started flying that, creating photogrammetry with those, doing planimetrics. Like I said, no background. Yeah. But learning how to do that and drawing lines based off of, our photogrammetry, and then taking our X7 and helping our construction department do altas and doing stuff like that. So then we went from that. We had that for, I think, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then we started getting into possibly getting the VLX and RTC 360 and then metrology scanning. And about that time, Shawn Asher came on, and when he came on, we purchased all that. We got our metrology scanner. We got our RTC 360. We ended up getting our first LiDAR drone.
Nice.
We got 4 more DJI drones. We went from I think we went from 2 pieces of equipment to 10 pieces of equipment, and all within 2-3 months. And then unfortunately that hurt us really bad, because we went from all this, with nothing to something to not knowing how to use that something. And, it was bad, and it's still, we're getting to the end of the bad part, because we've now learned how to use all these pieces of equipment. We've brought on all the employees, or all of the, subject matter experts that know how to process and use these pieces of equipment. But at that time, I think we really hurt ourselves just trying to buy all this stuff. Because who doesn't like new stuff? Who doesn't like the VLX? Who doesn't like a stuff?
Well, and I think that's some of the growing pains that, when you are a company that's forward thinking and you want to get into new technologies, you want to be innovative, there's always pain that goes along with that and things that you have to learn. And honestly, it's one of the reasons we're trying to put a focus on raising awareness around the technologies and workflows and trying to, grow into building educational content, is that so many companies, all you see is the marketing video or the sales pitch of hey, this scanner is this easy, or this drone, and then you go like you're talking about, you buy them all and you're like, oh crap, like there's so many tools, there's so many workflows, there's so many processes, so many details. When you really dig into it, when you look at a terrestrial laser scanner or a mobile laser scanner, and you want to apply that onto complex projects and you want to create detailed deliverables, if you walk through what all it really takes to do that, from controlling it to how you capture it, to workflows and capturing it, to whether you use targets or not, whether you integrate survey control or not, how you process that data, what files you convert that into, and then what softwares you use to create the models or drawings. Like, it gets complex, yet most of the time all you get is a quick sales pitch from someone who sells the gear that's like, this scanner is super good. All you got to do is press this button. It scans everything. You import it. You're done. And so then you go out and buy 4 pieces of gear and you're like, oh man, what did we get into? Like, who's going to run this? And this is still exporting. It's been 27 hours. Like, you know, you have to learn all this the hard way and then figure out, okay, here's what we really need to do. Here's these workflows. And then you go out and try it on a project and something messes up. And then you're like, okay, that didn't work. We need to change it for the next time so that we can avoid this. And like, nobody's really helping educate on how to use things properly beforehand. Everybody's going out and learning things the hard way on their own.
To your point, I think that in itself really speaks to like the opportunity in this industry, right? Because if we weren't making new tech all the time and there weren't so many options, like, you know, this industry would be pretty stale and it, you know, the growth potential really wouldn't be there. But the fact that these companies that are, you know, I don't know, billion-dollar companies are making new lasers and new tech and doing things quicker and faster and more efficient. Like, you know, the fact that they're not just like, okay, I'm just going to sell this and walk away and be done with it. I'm going to keep investing in this and making it better, more efficient, shows the potential in the industry and where things are headed. And it speaks to our opportunity in the industry as well, right? Because there's no college that really teaches this stuff. There's no one. It's like, you know, learning, even the process of learning this stuff and like, what are the inputs? What am I trying to do here? What is being done to the data? What should be exported? Like, you learn those 3 things for any step of your process or your production. Your career potential is through the absolute roof, you know, and a lot of people out there just want to press buttons and like go to work and have things be easy so they can go home and you know, like, you know, me, I got a fish tank and like, you know, it'd be easy for me to just want to press buttons and go home and just play with my fish tank. But like, if you want to learn and you want to grow, you want to do more, like this industry is the Wild West to be able to do that. Like, there's no limitations on opportunities. You know, myself, I like started as a data processor, you know, 10 years ago and worked my way up to trainer to supervisor, manager, director. And it's like in the course of 10 years without like a formal education on this thing. So, you know, all of those problems to me is just like wild opportunity in my eyes.
Yeah, it really is. And it's why I try to push individuals too when I talk about like innovation in this industry. I talk about it because it's been my personal experience. Again, you know, I was a entry-level survey drafter when I got started, and then I, in several years, learned, dove in, got excited, became passionate about my work, started learning about scanning and applying it and moving into different industries, to starting in a company and scaling and like working for the biggest companies in the world and the DoD and the, you know, I have seen in a short amount of time the need for all of these technologies across so many different industries and applications. It's what makes me excited now, is saying like, look, there's a huge opportunity here. A lot of people don't know the ins and outs of it. You could get started today and in 5 years be making more than if you went to school for 8 years and became a doctor. I mean, like, you know, don't, if you have interest or a passion to like go to school and you have a career path in mind, you know, don't let me pull you off of that. But if you don't know what you want to do yet, get into this technology, because you can, in a few years, be making more than any other job you would have, pursued, especially jobs that you could get without degrees. You don't have to have a degree in laser scanning.
Yep. And it's, because the technology is growing at such a rapid pace, it's becoming faster, more efficient, and cheaper. So therefore, with that, it's simultaneously lowering the bar for entry for other users to get into the space and utilize this technology. Yeah. We're doing it for asset management in warehouses that are 100,000 square feet. And traditionally, to do something like that 5 years ago, you're looking at $25,000-$30,000 for something that only fits this little niche of this one warehouse. But now it's $5,000 to be able to get somebody that owns this 100,000 square foot facility, warehouse, whatever, something that they can really put eyes on and use and leverage at a high level.
Yeah. Price point, if it, the ease of use of gear, all of that is making it easier, which is why the adoption is growing. More people are doing it, more people are asking for it, but the demand is still outpacing the amount of good companies out there to support it. There are thousands of projects. A lot of people don't know that because they don't talk to everybody. They go online and they're like, let me look at an RFP site. I don't see any requests for laser scanning. It's no, this industry is still new enough that there are requests out there, but for the most part, it is built by the people doing. Most of this technology right now is built within the industry. It's not some announced, contract. It is relationship building and talking with companies about the value. It's doing pilot projects. It's proving technologies. It's, showing efficiencies. A lot of it's like a secret industry. And so the best thing you can do is just get started with it, applying it on your own projects, becoming more efficient with that, then start pushing into, those other areas. But again, the lack of existing personnel that know how to do it really well, that's where the opportunity, Daniel, as an example, if you just get started and you start doing it for a couple years, you are now going to have more experience than most of the people you can find to hire. So you start now. In 5 years, you are the manager or you are the director level, because there are not this plethora of people to hire that have 10 years of experience.
Yeah, when I joined the Army and then I transitioned over to the geospatial side, at the time there was only 600 of us in the entire Army. And even in the entire Army, I think that's 1% of the entire American population is in the military. So even that is even smaller. My educational background, when I got out, I went to University of Phoenix and I got a bachelor's in business administration. And then I had some leftover GI Bill and I ended up getting a bachelor's in pastry arts and Auguste Escoffier. So
nice.
I actually am a pastry chef too. And then I got an associate's degree in artisan bread making. So I nothing to do with laser scanning, nothing at all. Yeah, and I'll
make sure he brings macaroni to Boise.
There you go. Yeah,
not a bad skill set.
I have no background in laser scanning, but I did pick this up 3 years ago. So when I originally came on 3 years ago to Allen & Company, I was out scanning over 200 and something scenes in the Trimble X7. And I scanned for, I think it was 5 days, brought the data back, and my boss was going through it, and he's like, this is some horrible data. The overlap is 10% at best. And I was like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, you have to get closer to overlap everything so that you have accuracy spread out through your project. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Yeah. So I started learning how to process the data in the office, which made me a better data acquisitioner in the field. And that's even with our crew now. I try to bring them in and I let them get the data themselves. They, go out and collect it. They bring it in, they process it, and they deliver it so that they understand the whole process. because
hey, however you captured it, it's your headache now, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like a data processor might not know how to capture it out in the field, and a capturer might not know what it looks like in the end. So it's definitely, advantageous to get somebody to understand the entire process from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in our whole industry, that helps a lot. I found the same when I first got started in survey, and I was out on a field crew, shooting stuff with GPS. But then you transition to the office side, you're doing the drafting from points. You're like, oh, that's why I need shots on these cars. That's why they want to know how this is named. That's why, and I think the same for reality capture. Somebody that's modeling should go out in the field and talk with the team about how to capture. And someone that's, doing scanning should sit down and watch modeling processes to see, oh, that's why I want that angle on this, because you're trying to model it. You need to see that when you have that kind of start to finish overview, it really helps whatever area you end up being the one, kind of specializing or deep diving into.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that you're most excited about right now? So you guys have been building, you're kind of honing in on so many different technologies. What's an area you would say is like taking quite a bit of your focus right now? Whether it's a specific piece of the technology or a specific like application for it or anything like that.
I am truly, truly fascinated by the opportunities inside of modeling and simulations. We have a B-52 just hanging out for public access at Orlando Airport right down the street. And there are a lot of companies out there that specialize in building like maintenance trainers. How do you change the hydraulic fluid for this aircraft? And instead of having to have the people learning the skill in front of the aircraft and like going through it on hands-on, which, then takes the aircraft out of commission, and the students have to sit there and manually actually do it and one at a time. And it's like in a process. And then how to even evaluate it, the aircraft has to be down even longer for them to go through it and show that they can do it. They build maintenance trainers, right? So it is almost a video game aspect in which you have to, say, okay, I need this specific wrench and I need to turn these specific bolts to access this specific panel. I need to remove this specific piece to then be able to access the actual hydraulic reservoir or whatever it is, right? And right now that is being done through modeling. Somebody goes out and takes hundreds and hundreds of photos and uses a tape measure to sit there and measure the aircraft or boat or tank or missile, rocket launcher, whatever it is, and then creates a model in the computer. And, we've had one opportunity. We're seeing I guess we've had 5 or 6 opportunities now, but we've had one with an aircraft specifically. And, we were told that we're cutting their modeling time down from 4 months to a week. And it's like, yeah. So then now the conversation we're having to have with these entities and these people in this space is like, okay, hold on, you don't have to fire your modeling team. You don't have to. Like, I get it. This can put some people out of work, but think about it the other way. Like, if this is just the rough draft, like, how incredible can your modeling team really make this thing look? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? If we're giving you this as just the baseline, what can you redeploy those modelers onto? What else can they do? What other projects could you take on? So the modeling and simulation space is like, it's just ripe. It's just ripe. And there's tools and technologies that, a lot of surveyor companies have these terrestrial scanners, but their willingness to branch out and try something different and try to service a new entity or industry, that appetite isn't very high. So it's exciting to me to be in that space and have those opportunities for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's a lot of use case around simulation and training and education, immersive education. I think that's probably an area that's just barely been tapped into, but definitely see the need for it across a lot of industries, from from buildings and airports to oil and gas facilities and nuclear facilities and all of these places that are busy, they're large, it's hard to do on-site training. Anybody like that could be using something similar for having a digital twin or a digital copy of their environment that they can use to train new staff or train contract hires. Or, we looked at that a lot when we were working in oil and gas, where you'd go to a facility and they'd all play, little safety training videos that are all just kind of generic content. And it's like, you guys could actually be training people on your actual facility and pointing out where the actual hazards of this facility are and where the areas they're going to be working in, instead of kind of the generic material. And so I think there's a big use case there, but probably just barely kind of scratched the surface on it.
Yep. And there's to me, there's an untapped potential in history education and preservation in what we're doing and what we're seeing. And again, I was ready to quit and be a high school history teacher, so it's for me, that's really exciting to me. But, we have a train museum in, literally 50 feet from our office, and there's a giant train there. We went and scanned it, and out of our own pocket, just to see okay, how would you scan this? This is a weird, unique thing. How would we scan this and create a model or a digital twin of it? And, scanned it and giving it to the train museum to put on their website, a viewer of the thing. So it's the opportunity to get more engagement or more excitement, or just the whole point of preserving the history is to tell the story and get people engaged in it, get people to understand it. Now they have it on their website, so the opportunity to just click around and move around the train and oh wow, this is pretty cool, let's go take our kids there, instead of just this flat text document on a screen that's oh, come see whatever. It's it's just cool, man. It's just cool.
It's fun. So we talked a little bit about, the struggles of adopting so many technologies at the same time and kind of working through workflows. What would you say are some of the current challenges that you guys are still seeing in the application of these tools and kind of scaling the use of them? And, what are some of the pain points that you guys are running into or have run into that maybe others, would be interested in hearing about?
I think it's hard when we're collecting the data that the software to process it is proprietary. And I think that's what really hinders us from advancing, is because of that. So, it just like the RTC 360, in order to process that, you need register 360, but then, you only have one license. So you need to purchase 2 licenses, you need to purchase 3 licenses. And then in order to continue to proliferate within that data. But for me, it is just that it is the software to be able to process that. I mean, the equipment itself is going to be expensive no matter what. I mean, the better it is, the more expensive it's going to be. And then, like we said before, finding the subject matter expert to be able to process that stuff, because my background is not processing anything, LiDAR, photogrammetry, any of that stuff. I crash course that stuff. My prior supervisor, he taught me all of that stuff as well. And then with Shawn coming on board, he's taught me everything as far as the IMU and LiDAR specifications and what that's supposed to be. So I'm consistently learning, but yeah, I really think it's just the abundance or the lack of abundance of software to be able to process certain data collections. From our LiDAR unit, we can't use any other software except what that software processes. Yeah. So we can't go to Rock Robotics, I think it is, or we can't go to some other software to process our LiDAR.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge with the different technologies kind of having some of their own silos and proprietary software processing or whatever, where you want to use a mobile scanner and you want to use aerial LiDAR and you want to use a terrestrial, but you can't bring them all into the same thing and get it nice and uniformed. Everybody's kind of got their own processes and workflows, and that takes a certain amount of time. And yeah, that's definitely one of the current challenges, I think.
I don't want to play favorites here or anything, but shout out to Regal because their new system is Python ready. So like, they be able to have some sort of open source communication in it, and like be able to start working on your own to do things inside of their technology, like way forward thinking. Nobody else is doing that. Other companies are charging you ridiculous amounts of money for a thumb drive because it's a proprietary thumb drive, and it's like, what? Okay, got it, thanks. And then again, I'm not playing favorites here. We don't even own a Regal, but the idea that it's Python enabled and you can start building your own scripts to be able to process data and get through things, it's like, wow, that's forward thinking for sure. So hopefully that type of mindset continues to proliferate in the industry.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there's definitely been challenge with that over the years, and I think we're seeing a little bit of movement toward more collaboration between platforms, but there's definitely still some issues there. And I hope long term we'll see some solutions come out that, if the companies don't talk to each other and work out good processes, there will be a standalone piece that can accept everything for processing. And I think there's a few that are out there, but there's still usually some type of data loss. Like if you take a scanner from one platform into the other, you lose the image, or you take one from here, there's something that gets lost in the process most of the time. But I think there's a few platforms out there maybe aren't too popular. And that's another thing I really hope to do over the next year or two. We're starting to do a lot of educational webinars and things on different solutions that are out there, because maybe there's a platform out there. We just don't know about it. There are so many companies working on developing solutions, hardware, software, workflows, services, but where do you go to learn about them? You just like Google stuff, or you hope you see a LinkedIn post, or, long term, I'd love to see a whole catalog with a matrix broken out of like what this package does and what does this company, help us pick tools and processes better. That's probably another challenge, is even just finding information.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's to this industry as a whole. I think that's somewhere where we are far behind, but we're also excelling at. Like you compare it to other industries, it's very cutthroat and competitive, but there's so many times in my career I run into an issue or an error, red flag, whatever I've never seen before, and there are numerous people that I can call and say, hey, have you ever seen this before? And they're love to help out because it's problem solving. Like there's no question in my mind we get an error we've never seen in the RTC 360 before, and I can call Matt Burton like, hey man, have you seen this before? What do you think? And you're like, it could be this or that, and like the sense of community and collaboration amongst, the industry, it definitely exists on the user end for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is one of the best ways forward when this industry is still new and it's changing and technologies are changing. And, it's the reason I'm shifting my entire focus from just being a practitioner to building a community. I want it to be easy to find information, to learn about workflows. I want to see the people who have been doing this for 10 years start building educational content to help firms that are just now getting started avoid the headaches that we all have had to run into and the pain points. And I really feel like together as a community, we can build a process, and we can build a communication platform, and we can build training material to really help the whole industry grow. It helps us avoid messing up on jobs. It gives clients better feedback. It helps us win more projects. It really elevates the whole industry when you're open and collaborative, as opposed to, there are still a lot of companies that have the mindset of like, oh, I just want to get more work. I don't want to tell you how I learned this problem. Like and I am doing everything I can to like break those walls and be like, if that's the mindset you guys are going to be the ones who fall behind, because we're building a community of people who share information and help each other to help the whole industry grow.
Yeah, that's why I like
There's
RCN.
just too much opportunity out there. There's just way too much opportunity out there to try to be selfish. And it's like, hey, I could send my whole crew out here to scan all of this giant facility and take 2 weeks, or I can partner with this company who I have a great relationship with, who helps me when I'm in need, and we can send one crew each out there for a week, and we can each make a piece of this puzzle, and everybody's winning. There's too much opportunity out there to be selfish and cutthroat competitive. Like, you can't hire enough people to win it all. You just can't.
Yep. Yeah. And the longer I've been working in the industry and talking with big companies, the more that I realize just how big those opportunities are. And a lot of people just don't even realize. Like, I have talked with, in the last year, probably 4 companies that have over 2,000 projects each that they want to try to accomplish. So let's say that's 8,000 jobs. Who in the world are they going to hire to go scan and model and survey and drone 8,000 projects in a reasonable time frame? It doesn't exist. Like, the only way to actually scale and handle the amount of work that could be captured out there as the interest of digital twins and the use of this data, is scaling, is by making it easy to train people, finding information, hiring and scaling, collaborating with companies, knowing who to collaborate with. Like, having the community can really help us solve some of those big problems as the industry, is growing and the desire for it is growing, because there really is a lot of opportunity. And I really think we're going to keep seeing that growth over the next few years. So it's like, all right, let's start now. Let's start the process now to build and train and build the community and build relationships so that we know how to accomplish and prepare for some of that growth we see.
I've seen how big like RCN has gotten in the past 2 years, and I've learned a lot. And just talking with you about a month ago on our process of laser scanning and using paddles versus putting the checkerboards on the wall and you shooting them with total stations, like that it changed my thought process of capturing, the laser portion of everything. And I want to be a part of Reality Capture Network as long as this thing continues, because I want to train people. That my excitement of this whole innovation and technology and stuff is to proliferate the information to everybody. It's not necessarily me being the one capturing, me being the one processing, and me being the one saying that I did that, but I want to train as many people as possible to be able to do this. Yeah. Like that's going to be awesome.
So much of what I'm doing now with trying to build this awareness, have these conversations, the interest in certifications, the interest in training material is because I'm looking back at what I wish I had over the last 10 years. And same with like you're saying right now. A lot of the ways that I currently help companies is like one-on-one conversations of how are you doing things now? What about this? What if we do control this way? Are you using this? It's all these one-on-one meetings and these conversations. And I'm like, we need to build those processes into training material so that we have a library in our education center on the website where you can just go find these. This should be training material already. There should be good videos and courses and training material on best practices with mobile, best practices with terrestrial, comparisons of data, what's the ideal technology for industrial facilities for this type of accuracy. Like, we should be able to create material around that so that industries and companies that are interested in getting started, even if they want to hire you to do it, maybe they go watch those videos first to say, okay, this is the technology we want applied, or this is what we should be asking for in our digital twin program. Or, if you are a company that's just building your department, instead of buying 8 pieces of gear, you watch a couple videos that go through the comparisons that you're like, okay, we think that one's better because we watched it against these 3 and we watched this workflow and this is the type of use case we have. Like, that is what I want in our education center because I go watch those. I want to know, nobody has all this information, yet it's out there. People have been doing it for 15 years. There are probably thousands of case studies that are sitting on somebody's hard drive in different companies that spent the time to dig in and do this, but then it just gets hidden and lost as opposed to helping the industry, share that information.
It's funny that you say you want to build this library of information and comparison. So, Shawn, do you want to talk to him about Tucker Ranch and the collaboration that we're doing with all of these big time companies?
Yep. So, Matt, we've already talked about it, but I guess we'll spill the beans for the listeners. This whole thing started as just trying to educate our internal survey customer. Allen and Company is from, what is it? Let's see here. 1988.
Yeah,
1988 original survey company. And we've been around since 1988 just doing traditional surveying. Added a construction department, added a subsurface utility exploration department, and then started adding the LiDAR and the photogrammetry to try to make those things better and help them improve efficiencies, gain, save time and money, right? In that, they are very traditional surveyors, and salespeople sell these technology as a black box, and it'll solve all your problems, and it'll make everything 10 times faster, and you're going to save billions on one project, billions and billions of dollars on one project, and it's like, they're tired of that. Surveyors don't want to hear that nonsense. They're very meticulous. They're putting their careers on the line with everything they sign, because if they're signing something that's inaccurate, they can lose their license. So they need and they deserve more of an answer of how do these things work? How good can they actually be? What are the limitations? Don't tell me it just solves all my problems. I'm not interested in that. So, with that being said, we have a Trimble X7, a LiDAR drone, photogrammetry drone, RTC 360, and a VLX. And instead of just saying, hey, give us a project, we'll go do it for you, it's important to show them how this thing works and what the actual limitations are. We had our survey department go out and set control on a small, 3-acre site right down the street from us. They tied from one benchmark, did a leveled run through the entire park, and then ended at another benchmark and closed it at 6,000.
I think the bench run was closed at 2,000s, and the level loop was closed at 1,800s or something like that.
Yeah, so ridiculously tight control. And then we went and hit this park with every piece of technology we got to show them the actual point cloud, to show them how the point cloud registers to itself and what accuracy the point cloud registers to itself, and then how it gets adjusted down to ground control, and show them, the level of detail achievable with each thing, show them the time it takes to collect with each thing. And I thought, if we're doing this with all of our piece of equipment that we already have, let's reach out to anybody else in the industry, which, really it came from Geo Week and talking to you about what you're doing and how you're trying to bring the community together and the thing. And I was like, well, shoot, let's see if Regal wants to play ball. Let's see if Teledyne wants to play ball, Faro, ZNF. And we're in communications with everybody to try to figure out who wants to be a part of this and who wants to contribute. And, our goal isn't to disparage anybody and say oh, this sensor sucks and this one's better. The goal is really just collect the data over a site and present the information. And this is what we found. And these are what these things do, and look for yourselves. And the sensor manufacturers get to play ball to whatever degree they want to. If they want to add marketing to it and be able to use that data to show their potential customers in the future, it's going to be public facing. So whoever wants to see that data in the future can see that data and look at it for themselves, side by side comparison on the tightest survey control that we can, what the limitations and what the sensors can do on this specific site.
No, and that's the type of information I think is helpful for the industry, and it even be, long term, it'd be awesome to do something like that in different settings. You do an outdoor park, but then you go and do a 30,000 square foot office space who has a ton of architectural, and then you go into an industrial facility who has a ton of small piping, and because that's the struggle, is that so many people want to see the comparisons of data, but then they work in different industries, and then they work in different environments, and they have different, accuracy needs, and it's this type of information can help people identify at least a little bit better than just random Googling, or reading the spec sheet of a scanner of, let me actually see the data from the two overlaid and slice them. And like you said, I always tell people in all the education stuff I do too, my goal is never saying this is not good enough. It is just to identify what is the difference, because we in the past we did a iPhone LiDAR review, and we did that against a terrestrial scanner, and then we did a Matterport versus a terrestrial scanner. And my response is always, my goal is not to say the iPhone is not good enough. If anybody expects that an iPhone should replace a terrestrial scanner, honestly, you're kind of dumb. Like you cannot think an $800 phone is going to replace a $50,000 scanner. The goal in comparing data like that should not be to say, oh, we don't need a scanner anymore. The goal is to evaluate the phone's data and say, what is it good enough for? What could we do with this? How could this benefit us in a way that we couldn't before? Because I don't know about you, but I don't carry my terrestrial scanner around in my pocket, yet I do have my iPhone. So what brilliant ideas could we come up with that let somebody who has phones in their pocket for their whole company say, hey, every once in a while, like if you run into this room, this mechanical room, or this site where there's this weird feature, like don't just take a picture, pull it out and scan it with your phone, because you already have it. Yeah. It's already in your pocket. It's not an additional expense. Like there are ways to use the tools that create new opportunity, as opposed to looking at this tool replaces this tool or this tool. It's what do the different tools allow us to do that are different than the other ones?
So perfect example with the iPhone. Like I've worked in companies where the mobile scanner, hooked to the back of a car was the tool. And, when you're driving along, you're not getting the bottom of the ditch or the drainage feature, right? And like, sure, you can send your crew out there with a total station, or, you can send them out there with a terrestrial scanner for every drainage ditch, but do you actually really need that? Could you supplement it with iPhone LiDAR data? Yeah, it worked for us, So it's like, there are, to your point, like you can just poo-poo on the iPhone LiDAR, or you can see like, okay, what is this? Where could I actually use this thing? And there are definitely real world applications for it.
It's funny that you say like you have your iPhone in your pocket. We did a job last year where we went up to a military base, and while we were there, I was like, hey, you know what? Let me go, and I ended up scanning a tank with my phone, and I just walked around it.
Yeah.
And now I have all these tanks on my phone that I went and scanned.
That's fun.
And it's funny, dude, because like we'll be out to dinner, like the family and us, and I'm like, man, you know what? This is a really nice like.
I'm just gonna scan this while we're here.
Come in here. Yeah. Well, I was like, I talked to the waiter. I'm like, hey, is your manager here? Hey, here's my card. I'd love to come here and scan this. And my wife's like, why are we always talking about work? And I'm like, I want to scan that.
I know. Yeah. Once you get deep into scanning, you can't go anywhere without thinking like, oh, I want to scan that building or that bridge or that facility. This would be perfect. Yeah. No, it's stuck forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, man. That's awesome. Well, man, we've covered a lot today. I'm excited to just hear from you guys on how the company's moving forward, the roles that you guys are playing, that transition out from military into industry, I think is exciting. It's great to share that information out for everybody to hear that process of like coming out as a veteran into an industry where you had no experience and you are getting in and learning quickly. And I think it's great for us to encourage, as we know that there's a lot of veterans that have a hard time transitioning out or finding roles, or and I think the survey community, the geospatial community, and even specifically, like we've talked about, reality capture is a very needed industry that, all we need is people who are willing to learn, willing to be taught, that it can come in and be disciplined and learn and apply themselves. Anybody that meets those few requirements right there with zero technical background can come in and have an awesome career ahead of them. So I think it's great raising awareness to that, and appreciate you guys coming on to share today.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate your time, man.
I understand how hard it is coming out of the service, and you know, with Asher as well, coming out and not knowing what's gonna go on. And you know, even with veterans, like, we deal with other issues, you know, like our mental health and stuff, just from PTSD, or if we do carry that over. But you know, with Allen and Company, and we when in Allen and Company, we try to help with that. And I've gone through times where I've seeked treatment, and Asher's helped me, you know, go through that stuff as well. So I would love to help other veterans too. And please, you know, reach out, whether it's to be employed through Allen and Company or just to talk.
Yeah.
I'm part of another group called Florida for Warriors. They meet up once a month somewhere in Florida, and it's just for veterans only. And they do 20-mile ruck marches, and it's just camaraderie together. It's just to help each other with mental stability. You know, if they are looking for jobs, if they need help. We had somebody that interviewed with us that had no idea. I mean, he's not a veteran, but he's a firefighter. And he had no idea how to do a resume. And I said, hey, just text me your information. I got your resume. And I set it up. So just please reach out to us. I will help with anything I can possibly do. I have contacts. We know people that have contacts.
Yep.
I'm really willing to help.
No, that's awesome to hear. And, yeah, it's definitely something that's needed. I mean, I think everybody in the world needs a little more kindness and community. And yeah. I actually just did a social post kind of calling out the need for, you know, more awareness around mental health. And, you know, just in the last, I think, 2 years, I have 3 personal friends that have committed suicide. And, you know, and I know veterans too, it is a big deal. And it's you know, mental health around the world, but also uniquely for veterans coming out of military with PTSD and issues like that. I mean, that's the other thing that I get excited about in building a community that is apart from just education, is just actual friendships and relationships. There are so many people that don't have good community around them. They don't have good networks of people. They don't have friends. And like, I mean, that's what life's about, right? Like, as much as we all want awesome careers, you know, who wants an amazing career if you don't have good people around you to live with? So I definitely, you know, I think that's a great point to bring up. And, you know, I think, like you talked about with the other groups you have going on, I encourage anybody that has an interest to reach out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just lost my last squad leader that I had when I was in Hawaii. He just passed away, just committed suicide about a month ago. I just found out.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Immediately I told Asher and told him, and, you know, he obviously came and asked me, you know, if there was anything that I could possibly need from him. And it's just talking. It really is. 'Cause I personally, like, I need to be busy. I cannot have anything to not do, 'cause then I get in my head. So Asher's always like, well, why are you working till 10 o'clock at night? Or why are you doing this? It's because I have to be busy. I have to have my mind going always. And so, it's hard.
Well, yeah, sorry to hear about that. And it's just, it's one of those, you know, it's one of those things. So when you do need to keep yourself busy, when you do have, you know, struggles, and you realize that is a strength too, is that if you apply yourself somewhere, that is helping you win mentally. Like, and it creates an opportunity for you in saying, like, instead of being someone who's just going to sit around or kind of let yourself tear down, is you have to figure out that mental block of, like, how do I overcome and decide that applying myself is worth it, instead of letting myself kind of, you know, just sit and start feeling and thinking in my head. And that ends up creating an opportunity for you. You're applying yourself, you're becoming driven. And, you know, maybe sometimes people say, hey, you work too much, but at the same time, you know that you need to do it. And it's helping you in your career, because maybe you're at home and then at night you're like, I need something to do, so I'm going to get on and research. I'm going to learn. I'm going to go trial something. You know, you know that you want to fill that extra time with something, and you end up using it in a way that's positive for you and, you know, your journey forward.
Yeah, Asher's definitely been like a savior to me, because he helps me get out of my head a lot. And
that's a cross to carry, man.
He does. He really does.
The way I look at it is like, we are the future of this industry. In 5 years, it's not going to be boomers that are dictating how this industry goes. And, the opportunity for us to create the culture in which we care about people and we care about, hey, let's help you get your balance and your things in order so that you can come to work and kick ass. Like, how can I help make sure that when you come to work, you can be present at work and you can kick ass here, and like, that's our opportunity, in this industry, is to dictate that, because again, it's not going to be boomers, and we're the ones that are the experts in this. There isn't people with decades more of experience in this industry than us. So we really get to define what that looks like and what that's going to be, and set that standard for what that means. Because it's not banking. It's not been around for 100 years, and it's never going to change. Like, this industry is so new. It's our opportunity to set that culture and set that standard of what it means to be an employee-centric company in this space, or the company that people want to work for in this space. That's our opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially in our industry, the days of you have to go to college, you have to get this degree, we want to hire because you're technically knowledgeable, are non-existent. Like, we talk about it all the time. The people we want to hire are based on the people and the people skills. Wherever you're coming from, that's fine. Whatever your background is, that's great. If you maybe know a little bit already, cool. If you know CAD, if you have some background in construction, it would be helpful. But at the same time, we have hired people based on technical or resumes that did not last long because the person was not applying themselves. The people skills were not there. And, it creates a massive amount of opportunity for people that are good people that don't have a career path ahead of them. This is like an open door. And like you said, in 10 years, a lot of people that are in charge at businesses now are retiring out, and all the younger generations that are very technology forward, they're coming out of school, learning Revit, they're getting into 3D modeling, they're familiar with gaming and iPads and virtual. Those are going to be the people deciding how business is done and implementing. And that is why, again, we're going to see a massive amount of adoption of all of this, from drones and capture and scanners to models to simulation to virtual training to industrial metaverse. Like, it is going to be massive over the next 10 years. And getting in now, being in now, and being patient, that's another big thing. A lot of times people want to find a job today that is the highest paid, that is the easiest job. Like, no, get in, get started, be patient over the next 5 years, and you're going to get to be a part of what's rising.
Innovation.
Yep.
That's really what it is.
Yep.
I mean, I can't think of a single Fortune 100 company that in 10 years won't have digital twins of their facilities. Like, I just can't. I can't imagine somebody that's like, nah, we're good. We don't need it. It's like, I mean, there's some aspect to a digital twin that's going to save you some time and money. It's like, what that is, maybe that's not defined yet, but the opportunity is definitely there. And the cost to make one comparatively is so low. It's like, for a stadium, the cost is a person's salary. And it's like, okay, for the cost of one person's salary for a stadium that has hundreds of employees, you're telling me that you couldn't find that value out of this? That's no way. There's no possible way you can't find that value in this. Like, it's just, what value do you want to find, and how do you want to apply it? So,
we are at the point that we get to create what that future is going to look like. And like you just said, you can't think of a company that won't have digital twins of their facility. I really think that we, in the future, and it's hard to put a timeline to it, but I think we will be to the point that there is a digital twin need for every asset on Earth, every building, Every building, every facility, every homeowner, I really think we will get to the point that everybody has a digital twin for simple uses. A homeowner to pop open a home when they're getting ready to buy it, to plan out a furniture layout, to drop in the AR to see what something fits like, to, virtually paint it before they paint it to see if they want that, and then that just expands into the retail, into the automations, and then to robotics being able to pass through a building because it was mapped, and wayfinding and smart buildings. I really think with the future of where all these technologies and sensors and AI, it's all going to need to have that information mapped out and digitized in order to do the other things that they're interested in doing in the future. I think it's going to get weird.
It's funny that you say that too, because when my house was being built, I scanned it, and I have all of the locations of my studs. I did that just for that reason, to know where my gas line is that's going out back, and to know where my electrical is, and to know where my studs are.
Yeah.
I'm that homeowner that knows where my studs are. So.
Yeah.
It's going to get to a point where it's cheap enough to do that for $1,000 on a $500,000 house or a $250,000 house. You're telling me an extra $1,000 to have all that information? At some point in time, it's going to get that cheap.
And I think in the future, certain industries will get to the point that it's not even a question. It's not a question of, do we want to go scan that? No, I think at some point it becomes a part of the process of when it's built, it's scanned, it's documented, it's submitted. There is a digital twin of that building. Anything that is built, because of in the future, as the ROI, as the benefits are built out, I think that'll be proven enough that it is now just part of the process, period.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny that you're saying that, because we're literally having this conversation these past couple of days. This exact thing where, are they going to want it? It's going to be a part of the purchasing agreement and everything. The client or the purchaser is not even going to know that's part of the agreement. It just comes with it now.
Yeah. I mean, just like drawings and things are already like they are now, they're required. They have to be reviewed. They have to be submitted. They have to be signed off. That's just going to digitize at some point. That will be a model. That will be a digital twin. That will get linked to systems. That future is out there. It's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, I think we've had a nice long chat. Appreciate it. I mean, I feel like we could do 3 more of these. There's lots of areas to dig down, but
Sign me up,
we'll do more for sure. In fact, I think one more teaser for people. You talked about the Tucker Ranch project, the comparison of all the data. We might actually be presenting that at the conference this year.
Yes.
I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful. If we can continue to get our ducks in a row and get these things lined up and done, then yes.
So that'll be cool.
So I guess
challenge accepted. Yeah. Perfect. Good. All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thanks again for joining us for, again, I think so many areas that we shared, very valuable as far as the technologies, the adoption, the background, the mental health, the veterans. I think I love the topic. I love that we're creating opportunity, raising awareness to it, and hopefully it will encourage some people that are, one, not thinking about specifically hiring or looking for veterans, and then 2, hopefully we'll get in front of some veterans that are interested in opportunity, and we'll create some connections there.
Yes, definitely.
Yep. So appreciate your guys' time. We'll look forward to talking again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Appreciate it.
Be safe, brother.
If you or someone you know is currently in crisis or struggling with mental health challenges, we strongly encourage you to reach out to a mental health professional or a helpline in your country. Remember, you are not alone, and there are resources available to provide assistance. The phone number to the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 800-273-TALK. That's 800-273-8255.